Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. My guest today is John Pracyk. He is Chief Medical Safety Officer at Olympus, and we talk about the importance of continuous learning for medical affairs professionals. The opinions stated today by John are his own and do not represent the opinions or stance of Olympus. Don't forget to sign up for the Medical Affairs Excellence Summit, MAX, which is October 22nd and 23rd, and that's in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Gonna be awesome. I'm gonna be there. I hope to see you guys. And you can get more information by going to Max Summit 2024. See you there. Hey guys, welcome to the MSL Talk Podcast, a show specifically designed for MSLs and all things field medical. If you get value from these episodes, please click the subscribe button and share this with others. Tell all your friends. Thank you for all your support. Hey, John, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me, Tom. Pleasure to be here.
I'm excited. So, guys, I've known John for many years, really, I think through maps more than anything else. And see John every year we talk, and this is something I've kind of had on my list of to do is, get John on the podcast. And we've been talking about it, and here we are. We have a great concept, great topic to talk to you guys about today. But before we get into that, John, why don't you do a quick introduction, tell everybody who you are and all that good stuff.
Absolutely, Tom. Welcome, everybody. My name's John Pracyk. I am the Chief Medical Safety Officer for Olympus. I lead medical safety, I lead medical affairs, and I'm also accountable for infection prevention control. I've been at this role at Olympus since August of 2021. It's my second industry role. First industry role was at Johnson & Johnson, DePuy Synthes, which is their orthopedic section. I made my transition from clinical practice into medical affairs in 2016. And I was the franchise medical director responsible for the innovation pipeline for DePuy Synthes Spine. After about 18 months, was elevated to franchise medical leader. That's Johnson & Johnson terminology for chief medical officer. And then about 2017, we had something in the medical device world called European Medical Device Regulation, EU MDR. And one of the strategies that Johnson & Johnson had was we're going to combine medical affairs along with preclinical research. So in other words, benchtop, small animal, large animal, cadaver, ethnography, time and motion, as well as clinical research. So they called it PCM, preclinical, clinical, medical. And then I spent about a total of 5.5 years at Johnson & Johnson before making the transition to Olympus. Prior to that, clinically trained as a neurosurgeon. I'm a medical scientist, MD, PhD. Grew up in Chicago, got tired of the cold winters, went south down to Duke where the weather was a lot better. Liked it so well that I stayed through medical school. My undergrad majors were music and zoology, believe it or not.
Wow.
They had a special program there, Tom, called the Early Identification, where the idea was you get into medical school 2 years ahead, so as a sophomore. But what would you do if you already had that admission ticket in your back pocket? Would you take harder courses? Would you, take things that you might not do as well in? And I proposed this complex program in genetics, and this ought to be interesting. And at the last minute, I'm like, no. I'm a musician, piano and saxophone all through since grade school and high school. And as a result, I said, no, Duke had a Marine lab off the coast of North Carolina. So I said, we can design anything we want. I'm going to dive off the deep end. Got all the pre-med courses done pretty much by the end of sophomore year. So I was a music and zoology major, but it was really marine zoology. So it was like the farthest from the main campus and everybody else. Made for that first year of medical school a little bit hard, getting back to the real world, but it was completely enjoyable and a way to spend time as an undergrad.
Awesome.
MD, PhD, then did the public health service, paid for my PhD, and as a result, then had some payback to do to them. I trained in general surgery first, then spent 3 years on active duty, 3 years in the reserves as a commissioned officer, lieutenant commander, carried Navy rank, although make no mistake with, and I know your son's in the military, the public health service is probably it's one of the 7 uniformed services, but nowhere near as what the Navy is, even though we have sort of the equivalent of Navy rank. But it was a good way to learn. I did my postdoc at the NIH because that's what PhDs do. Like when you're done with your MD, you do your residency. And then after that, a neurosurgery residency, George Washington, and then came back to the Midwest, University of Iowa, for spine fellowship. I spent my entire clinical career in Catholic healthcare, believe it or not.
Hmm.
And literally from day one, I was involved sort of on the business side. We were building full-on spine and brain institutes. I built two of them in my career in
Wow.
Catholic healthcare. So if you think about the Comprehensive Cancer Center, you have multiple specialties working together. Imagine that concept spun for adult neuroscience, so neurology, neurosurgery, interventional pain management, which is usually anesthesia, and then physiatry, physical medicine and rehabilitation.
Hmm.
You have those four pillars, you can handle just about anything except pediatrics. And we did. The first one was in Waterloo, Iowa. You're thinking, my God, Waterloo, Iowa, why would you do it there? Well, it's really simple. 60,000 United Auto workers with back pain because John Deere is headquartered there. So our business model was we don't want to go out to the community, up to the Mayo Clinic or back down to University of Iowa. So that was our business model. So joined two of my other colleagues from GW. We set up shop there, working Catholic healthcare at Wheaton Franciscan. And we really enjoyed it because we were practicing comprehensive collaborative care. I then, after several years, got recruited by the sister system in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Affinity, which became Ministry, which became Ascension. And there was a similar situation. You got Oshkosh Truck that makes the Defender, which is the replacement for the Humvee. You've got Pierce Fire Truck, and then you have three of the paper mills. You have Kimberly-Clark, Scott Paper, and I'm blanking on the third. But you got about 80,000 union workers with back pain that were out migrating outside the community to get their care. It's the same sort of business model. Then in 2015, I ended up doing my MBA at the University of Tennessee, Physician Executive Program, and that was game changing. I hadn't been back to school for a while, but during that time period, I said, I'm going to talk to physicians that had made the transition into
Hmm.
affairs. But I also was looking at physicians that had made the transition to other things, whether it be consulting, whether it be the FDA or some of the insurance companies, whether it be Humana, CVS, Aetna, or Cigna. Ended up planning on talking to 10, ended up talking to 55 that one year.
Wow.
And not a single one said no, because they said, we've all been in your position. Long story short, the last person I talked to was chief medical officer at J&J. And he said, well, this was helping for an organizational leadership development project. And that's why I think everybody took the calls. But in the end, he goes, okay, we want to interview you. And 2 weeks later, I was being interviewed by J&J. A week later after that, I was on a plane. And next thing I know, I graduated with my MBA in December of 2015, took January off, February of 2016, started with J&J. So literally the MBA changed. And I said, well, I did it because I wanted to originally have a seat at senior leadership within Catholic healthcare, have a
Yeah.
seat at the table. The MBA reset the table, and I did a 90-degree turn into industry. And I'll be honest with you, I've enjoyed every bit of it.
And that's a really good
Yeah,
background for this conversation because we're going to talk about continuous learning. So who
absolutely.
better to talk about continuous learning than a guy that's an MD, PhD, MBA, and a million other things? So awesome. So let's talk about
Yeah,
that and the
absolutely.
importance and looking at professionals now. I think that this is a topic that's important, but I don't think people realize the magnitude of it. So can you share what this has meant for you in your career after giving us kind of the backstory?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think let me start out with the definition, then I'll kind of frame it up for a personal interpretation. I think the definition is that continuous learning is ingrained by all of us, no matter what walk of life we are. Whether it be continuing medical education or whatever you call it on the healthcare side, it's the way of extension. It's the way all of us, regardless of our careers, keep up to date. Okay, whether you're a tax attorney, where you're an accountant, whether you're an expert in a variety of different things, you usually have some sort of professional certification or some sort of professional credentialing that allows you just want to keep up on things. I mean, I just sat and redid my recertification for my neurosurgery boards last Friday. The way that's gone nowadays is they want to keep you up. It's not like you're looking at a textbook, you're reading the latest articles, the articles that you want to read anyways, but they're going to want to make sure that this is why it's important, because it may have created a turn in the way care is practiced, whether it be courses, conferences, seminars, online self-study. We got so many more options now. It makes it much easier. You don't have to get on a plane. You don't have to travel anywhere or sit in the class. For me, personally, it's one of those things that's always been part of my life that you kind of led to it. Is I've always liked the duality of balancing different things against each other. And sometimes that really means that you got to have things that are perhaps maybe disparate. I mean, I was deep into the lab doing benchtop work at the NIH. Yet a year before, I was in Dallas, Texas at Parkland, where I was doing my internship and general surgery training. And there you're deep into the trenches of a busy, tertiary care trauma center, where my worst night there as a second-year resident was 47 admissions. So the idea of the juxtaposition of things that are very, very different and keeping up on those different knowledge bases, I think that's part of it. But it also allows you to kind of take a step back and say, okay, what am I going to do with this? That evolution, what I just described to you in my career, you couldn't do that. You couldn't proceed and do a pivot out of a deep, intense surgical specialty into sort of learning business and then actually pivoting all the way into a medical device company. But it was, if you think about it in retrospect, it's because I had been doing some of the skills in the hospital as a physician leader that are immediately transferable over into industry. So I think we realize we have the skills. It's just in many ways, the experience aspect of it, you need to kind of step up to do whatever you're doing. And it allows you to give options. It keeps doors open, or even, well, like you just saw with me, it made a certain career pivot. There was like sort of 3 sections in my career. Each of them were possible with continuing education.
Yeah. And, I'm glad that you went through your experience, because it shows, we're in a very fast-paced environment right now. Everybody's so busy. So in your experience, what are the key benefits to continuous learning when people are super busy and they're in this fast-paced world that we're in?
3 things: adaptability, skill enhancement, career advancement. Okay. Adaptability allows you to pivot like I did. I actually pivoted on a dime. People, oh my God, how would you do that? I know how to practice neurosurgery. I can give this a try for 3 to 5 years. Doesn't work, and go back to doing this. So don't be afraid. In other words, what I learned that last year in business school really made me confident that I could do it, at least confident enough to give it a try. Skills enhancement. You keep yourself relevant by continuously adding to your repertoire. Think of it as the bat utility belt. You're able to pull out new skills whenever you need to.
Yeah.
And then career advancement. It's going to drive your growth. I mean, if you were to say, hey, John, the person I am now, if I was talking to the 25-year-old John, did I ever think that I'd be leading medical safety and infection prevention control, having been through clinical research? Well, I had some basic science research. I'd run a clinical trial as a medical student. I never thought my career would go through these multiple phases, but it's also kept it interesting. And that has really been the benefit, is it's kept you motivated to want to learn and grow and sort of be sort of intellectually hungry, if I can use that.
Yeah. Well, and that makes me think, when you mentioned skill enhancement, and when we look at people that are trying to figure out what their knowledge gaps are, what their needs are, what they need to work on, how do you recommend they decipher that?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is to, first of all, start with yourself. Self-reflection and self-assessment with brutal candor. Okay. You're your own worst enemy. That's human nature, psychology. We look at our deficits long before we look at our strengths. Seek feedback from others. Okay. They're going to be generally more positive than you. Perhaps determine the must-have that you need to get to the next step of career enhancement. Take stock, like any good professional, from the opportunities where perhaps you didn't get it right, or you had to course correct, or you needed to think, how could I have done that better? Those are opportunities. Does that mean that there are some skills there that could potentially be working for them? Or the flip side of it is, do you find yourself doing the same thing, that you just have a skill set that you constantly rely on that perhaps can be expanded? I think looking inside, but also looking outside, and be diverse in those opinions.
Got you. And then, so let's say you have someone who realizes, okay, this is important. I need to make time to do
Mhm.
this. How do they balance it? What, because obviously people have busy demands with their jobs, and how did you do it? And what's your advice for others?
I think it's really simple. You got to prioritize it. I always found that there were times of the day or times of the week when those were the quiet times. Some people it's getting up early. Some people it's staying up late. Other times it's, putting a pot of coffee on a Sunday morning and working through something while it's quiet before the spouse gets up. That type of thing. I think prioritize and schedule learning. First of all, you gotta pay yourself. So much like, you put money away from your paycheck to kind of make sure you don't spend it, if you're budgeting, dedicate 15 to 30 minutes every day that's in measurable chunks. Then integrate it into your daily routine. You're passionate about exercise. I need to do more with the job that's in industry, sometimes where you're sitting in front of computers as opposed to, I think, those years where I was standing as a surgeon. I actually think that was probably healthier. So integrate your learning, but people integrate learning while they're working out or while they're taking a walk, listening to a podcast such as yours. That's where I listen to yours, is when I'm taking a walk. Or you're caught in traffic, you're sitting in the back of the Uber and you got an hour to get to the airport because there's traffic on the turnpike. Those are opportune times. You know what I call it? Me time. They're
Yeah.
not going to bother me. Put the phone down, do a little bit of a digital detox, but use that digital detox for sort of a digital download, where you can kind of power up in terms of learning while you're doing some other activity. You talked about multitasking. Use it for yourself. But
Yeah.
also, if you want to have that time, delegate and outsource some of the work that you may be doing to give yourself a little bit of time. But also, it's going to help grow your direct reports in some ways, because now you're getting to see how they're handling some of your roles, whether, hey, step in while I take the trip overseas for these two important meetings. Also, use micro learning, a little bit smaller adjustable bites. Inch by inch, it's a cinch; yard by yard, it's hard, as they always say. And then join professional networks. We met at MAPS, Medical Affairs Professional Society. Did not understand much about medical affairs when I came in, so I was looking for a place to go. That's how I ended up going to MAPS in 2018, and the first time the Medical Affairs Professional Society is what we're talking about, because I was used to my neurosurgery societies as
Mm.
places where I grew and learned. And I went to MAPS, and there's mostly was pharma that back then. And I said, there's not much med tech here, but there were a few of us. And with the leadership at the time, we decided to build that out. So in other words, sometimes you have to make your own breaks, as the saying goes. And there I needed to learn. Now 25% of our industry partners are med tech companies, and we're now having a med tech medical affairs aspect that complements what's been going on legacy, the provenance of that organization on the pharma side.
Mm.
So I think that's the thing. And the last thing is, don't forget, we all work for employers that are offering some type of perhaps educational credits or learning. I just hired a new grad, not a new grad, but she's been out for about 5 years, and she's now going back to get her master's. And one of the reasons she came to work with us is because we do have a tuition reimbursement plan. Many companies do. So they're interested in investing in their employees because it's far cheaper to invest and grow than it is to replace when there's an unfortunate, regrettable departure.
Yeah, and I think we're in a good time right now because there are podcasts and there are online learnings and virtual. There's just, it's a different environment where you can
Mhm.
kind of pick and choose how and when. Because I'm an audio audible kind of guy. I'd rather
Uh-huh.
listen to a book or listen to a podcast for my
Mhm.
learnings. That's my style. That's what works for me. So and again, you can I do it when I work out. So it's a multitasking kind of thing, but it's
Mhm.
also, you find that when I know for me, when I'm exercising, I'm at this peak state where I feel like I can absorb things.
Mhm.
How do you suggest people kind of have fun with this? And what are some of the things that worked for you?
One of the things people can do is gamify your learning. In other words, you got the apps, you got platforms. I think we're all competitive at nature. I mean, whether regardless of what we're doing, so points, badges, letterboards, things like that. I mean, it's a way to actually help and make sure that learning is feel like a game to keep you motivated. There's other communities, people that are, interest groups and others, whether it be a hobby or whether it be something that you're doing for your career. You can learn an awful lot by being part of an interest group or, the amazing education that's available. And you said you like to listen to things. I like to watch things. You'd be surprised how much you can learn on YouTube. I don't care if it's something, a simple plumbing repair to something for your career or something that you're really interested in and you've gone down the rabbit hole on some particular hobby. And sure enough, there's someone that's got a video that explains exactly, how to purchase something, how to compare, or even things that are just important, like when you're coming up for something at work, you may find there's plenty of opportunities, plenty of resources out there that you can have on the demand at your time, regardless of where you are, anywhere in the world. You can pull that and get that information. In my
Yeah.
role in travel, I work for a company that's a global company. I have teams all over the world. I got a team in Tokyo that's 13 hours ahead. I have a team in Europe with Central European time that's 6 hours ahead. I don't care wherever I'm traveling, particularly on a 15-hour flight to Japan. I use that time, yes, to relax, but also use that time as to learn. And now you get long form learning can be accomplished because you got some protected time.
Yeah.
So you kind of use the opportunities and then demand match for the time that you have with the type of opportunity that perhaps I wouldn't have time for that long form learning back when I'm not on a plane sequestered. Then I'm going to use that time productively.
Yeah. And I always like to look at, these are all great points. I always like to look at what are the barriers and what are the challenges when you have somebody who's really eager to maybe get, finalize a certification or a degree, but they just maybe distractions or work-life balance. Like what are some of the things that you might have seen as barriers or challenges?
Three other things that I'm thinking of. First one's lack of time, fear of failure. Third one's lack of motivation. So lack of time, barrier, busy schedules, demanding workloads. This is life in the modern age. Solution, prioritize learning by dedicating time slots in your calendar. The little blocks in the calendar are those manageable chunks that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Micro learning, that's fit for your daily routine. I think the second thing is the fear of failure. The barrier for not succeeding can prevent individuals from starting their new learning. Well, adopt a growth mindset. View failures as opportunities to learn and grow. Anybody that's ever built anything has probably failed once or twice before, because that's how you get there. And someone said, "Well, how did you learn that?" And I go, "It's not because it's any brilliance. It's because of some scar tissue from a previous learning exercise
Right.
or previous experience that I don't want you to make the same mistake I made." And then perhaps just lack of motivation. I think people are sometimes tired, they're exhausted. You said you do your exercise to give you energy, but I think if you found it, put your eyes and your mind focused towards something, I think we all like to be moving forward. But sometimes those achievable goals or finding a learning community that I had mentioned before, they can get you motivated because you got
Mm.
others doing it. And it's that fear of missing out. Well, wait a minute, they're learning it. I need to learn it too. That's why people do book clubs. Perhaps they wouldn't read, but now that they know they have a deadline, same thing when I was training as a neurosurgery resident, we had journal club every month. And that was something that we looked forward to every Wednesday night. So half of the residency program got split up, went to one private practice office, and the other half of the group went to another, sat there and ate Chinese food and talked about the latest month's articles. I mean, it made it fun.
Yeah.
Yet it was you're with your people and you're with your friends and the people that you trained with, and they motivated you as well. I've seen those people some 40 years later when I was at a meeting and one of them pulled out a picture. I was like, oh my God, that's all of us sitting around a journal club eating Chinese food. You want to know something? You look back at that and it's like that was inculcating that constant desire to read and learn. We were
Yeah.
doing it as a group, and now look at us. We're not the young ones. We're the ones with the gray hair, and we're the ones that come years later, but we still do it. And that formed a camaraderie while you were doing that learning.
Yeah, good. Those are good memories, and being able to learn and do your job, but do it with and have some fun, do it with other people. That's why I love going to conferences. I go to a lot of conferences. Obviously, we talk about MAP. I love going to MAPS. I think they do an amazing job. And, just a shout out to Travis and Pedro and the whole team at MAPS do an awesome job. It's fun it's networking. You get to meet people and you get to learn at the same time. So I highly recommend that sort of continuous learning activity. But what do you think as a leader? What do you think organizations need to be doing to foster this concept of continuous learning with their people?
First of all, I think lead by example. Many of the things that we now have on our, we have to do some, employee trainings for a variety of, for me, in my area of safety for quality, because we're going to get audited by competent authorities, things like that. But one of the things they did is they subscribed to LinkedIn. So you can pick and learn
Yeah.
things right from your own learning platform at work.
Hmm.
And then I think that's, that kind of gets into the second. Well, do you have access for them? Well, yes, they did. Before it was, LinkedIn has done a lot of different things. Before that, when I was back in doing my MBA, there was Lynda.com.
Hmm.
I had, I was good with PowerPoint. I was good with Microsoft Word. But as a clinician, I had never worked on a spreadsheet. I used an online program to teach me how to do Excel before the MBA started. And I think also encourage people's growth and development, give them opportunities and realize that that's going to be rewarded. And some companies, as I said, have paid for entire graduate degrees. Others provide other opportunities and will foster things. Like I was at J&J. I think I ended up going 3 courses at Harvard Business School that they sent me to.
Hmm.
Uh, Now, those were, I was with people from other companies at certain aspects, but there was also one of those 3 that it was just the senior leaders of J&J. So I was there with the CEO of the med tech sector of J&J with the top 35 leaders. And we got to spend 4 days there together. So I think the better companies and things and organizations really want to invest in their people, particularly investing in that development where the more experienced pulls up the younger, the more inexperienced.
Yeah. One of the things that I've seen is that there are lifelong learners that almost become junkies for this stuff. So
Mhm.
I'm curious, like, at what point and to what extent should people go to in their quest to upskill? And does it get do they go too far?
Um, I don't think they can go too far. I think it's, to what extent, I think if you think about your career goals,
Hmm.
I think focus on those and think about upskilling, what you need to do.
Hmm.
Think about what the industry requirements are. Are you up to speed? Do you know where the industry is going? For me, I moved into medical safety and I realized that our quality engineers were the people I was spending time with. And they're like, by all means, these are some of the organizations you want to go to for the training and certifications, but also don't overdo it. Think about balance and well-being.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, there actually is, you can be overset, you can be super saturated. There are
Yeah.
times when, the work and everything, you're tired, you need to take a break. And, a healthy work-life balance, is it balance? Or do I think if I repurpose that, I think about it as a healthy work-life integration.
Mm.
Okay. Because, we have long hours. I particularly have longer hours at this company than I did at the previous one, but I have windows of opportunity in the middle of the day before other parts of the world are coming back online that I
Right.
can now, that's my time to maybe go around to the unfinished section of the basement and exercise, to go get something at the grocery store, pick up something at the pharmacy midday, because guess what? I'm getting out of the house. I'm working from home now, but also those are the types of opportunities where you need to mix it up a little bit and you got to have that balance and well-being. We work hard enough as it is, you got to put yourself first.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Yeah. Um, and I think just looking at this scenario, I know and I mentioned this before, we're in a different time right now. It's
Mhm.
obviously this continuous learning process has to be a lot different now than maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, I'd imagine.
Yeah, technology and access to information is far more advanced. So you're going to see, I think, kind of a couple things. Technology integration, then continuous education. I said you're getting on a plane, traditional methods, in-person workshops, and I
Mhm.
spoke at those workshops. That was fun. Now technology plays a role. There's going to be hybrid, they're going to be online, they're going to be webinars, things that you can learn from the comfort of your own home. But also there's, different things that we never had before. U Academy, Coursera. In fact, you can get a graduate degree on Coursera essentially free of charge. Now, it may take you a long period of time. That's an opportunity we never really had before. The open
Yeah.
access learning that the universities have realized that other learning platforms are competing with. Also, perhaps you don't need a full degree. Now it's a certificate in something. And then, like I said, it's that access and that, again, that learning culture, the continuous learning is just so far more easier that, COVID disrupted people's careers, but they seem to like easily pivot and become business owners or self-sufficient entrepreneurs as a direct and proximate result of what was available while their downtime, and was able to do that. I've had other people that very successful entrepreneurs, they ended up selling out. They couldn't work for 2 years in that space. One of them went back and got a graduate degree in those 2 years, and then now pivoted and moved into a similar adjacent space, but now he has the credential to do it. And he never had it. He kind of just was a self-learner all along, and he used his exit strategy and his resources from that to retool himself professionally from a credential standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find myself migrating towards things that I like and that I want to do, that's in my comfort zone.
Mhm.
What's your advice for people to maybe step out of their comfort zone when it comes to this upskilling and continuous learning concept?
I think if you step outside of your comfort zone, that's where the real, I'm going to say, geometric growth is going to take place as opposed to the linear growth. Because when professionals challenge themselves, usually you're going to know what you didn't, you're going to find out what you didn't know, but you're also going to find out what your new limits are.
Right.
And how about, can you multitask, and you're going to start pushing the boundaries, and that's going to build resilience, and that's going to make you actually more adaptable. It's also going to enhance some of your problem solving skills. Learning new skills involves tackling unfamiliar problems. Okay, that means that you do need that being able to look at it directly, but maybe able to look at it slightly 15, 20 degrees from a different aspect. And perhaps doing that's going to help you develop that sort of get you out of your comfort zone, at least just widen your aperture of thinking when you get exposed to other people. And this also is going to have a direct and proximate result, because it's going to increase career opportunities. When all of a sudden you're building out a new skill set, you're also making yourself incredibly more valuable to the company that not only employs you, but is elevating your net worth as someone that has a unique set of skills that perhaps maybe other people didn't have. So it can open up new career opportunities. So embracing discomfort is really part of the learning process. I have something sitting on my desk here. It's a stone that was painted years ago with the word uncomfortable on it.
Yeah.
It's a reminder to me in some ways that I got to always challenge myself, get myself uncomfortable. But for my teams and the people that I'm working with, my job is to get you comfortable with how uncomfortable I'm going to make you.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to foster some of your learning. So
Yeah.
they're like, they look at that, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get you comfortable with how uncomfortable I'm going to make you. You're going to be surprised. Okay.
Well, and I think that in this time that we're in, I think there's a lot of people that know they need to come up to speed on certain things, like AI, for example,
Right.
anything digital. And that might not be in their comfort zone, but they know that they should. So what advice do you have for people that may feel like they're behind the curve or overwhelmed and know that they need to do it, but just haven't?
Yeah. I think you heard me say this before, start small, achievable goals,
Yeah.
one skill at a time, hopefully in a sort of a ladder that builds. That makes you so you're not overwhelmed. Second, create a written learning plan. And I say a written, it can be a spreadsheet, it can be something, but something that you can check off and have that feeling of accomplishment. And then lastly, leverage available resources. I think, like we said, Coursera, Khan Academy, LinkedIn Learning, they're all out there that you can get up to speed pretty quickly with some of those resources. And even still, I mean, some people I've heard, while they're doing job interviews, they're basically looking while Chat GPT, when they get a question that they can't answer, they're online automatically thinking about it. I mean, there's many times when you've thought of something, and I can't remember who was that actor in this movie or that actress. What do we do? Alexa, blah, 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 or Siri, blah, blah, blah. And it's some of the stuff is just things that you never really thought of. Like someone was asking, well, how big is that company? And it's like, okay, Siri, what's the market cap of XYZ? Boom. right there. It's at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's like, did we have that before? I mean, this is you know, when you think of Steve Jobs' first presentation for the iPhone,
I remember this.
it is a phone, it is a music listening device, and it is a internet communicator. Everybody's like, what is he
Yeah.
talking? That's classic now.
Yeah.
It's like the iPhone, of course it is. He knew exactly what it was. Those three things, three basic things. It replaced the phone. It replaced what was very, very popular iPod, and it allowed people to navigate. They were used to using the, the internet was, how they were getting information. Now you could do it with the comfort of your pocket. You had it. You had all three. And I mean, you look back, that was classic Steve Jobs pushing innovation. Look, the resources, leverage available resources. Look what you have in your pocket.
Yeah.
Literally.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because I feel like that video keeps coming up on my Instagram feed. Like I keep seeing that video.
Yeah. It's like
So
I
I know
want to go out and get a black
exactly.
turtleneck,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So where does that take, like looking at how far I was going to say, how do we get our information? I had a set of encyclopedias. Like I don't want to date myself, but
Oh, Encyclopedia
like,
Britannica.
yeah. And actually it was kind of fun, but it's much easier going to the internet, going to Google and go to ChatGPT. But so what happens in the next 10 years? What do you think happens in the next 10
I
years?
think you're going to see, it's like anything else. We have highly evolved to highly personalized medicine. We're going to have highly personalized, almost bespoke handcrafted learning experiences.
Yeah.
And the technology is going to allow that to happen.
Mm.
I mean, literally, whether it be your learning style, whether it be a certain pace, or it be a certain preference, those are the types of things I think overall that's going to make why it's going to make it more efficient and it's going to make it more engaging, which means it's going to potentially then stick and it's going to be with you. The more memorable it is, that studies have shown, the more memorable it is, the more it's going to be retained. And I think those are the things I think. So then also, maybe it will be the emergence of integrating technology. So it's the AI, but the virtual reality or mixed reality or those types of things where now it's a personalized experience that is just easy to simulate real world scenarios. And then there's probably going to be these life learning ecosystems where what is, the micro badges, the digital credentials, this sort of gamification that I spoke of earlier really gets codified into learning pathways that you can pick and choose how you want to learn and advance. And I think regardless of where you are, what your career is, whether it be pharma, med tech, whether it be as I said, something in the law or tax or accountancy or actuaries, you have to make it accessible. You have to make it engaging. You have to make it memorable.
Mm. Awesome. Well, we'll leave it at that, John. You're awesome. This was an amazing conversation. I knew it would be. And hey, we're talking about continuous learning, and we all learned a lot. Go figure.
Go
See how
figure.
that works?
Exactly. It's a pleasure, Tom. Thank you so much. I look forward and I learned so much from you and the podcast that you do. So it's just a privilege and an honor to be part and help contribute to what you're doing. So
Well,
thank you
I'm
so much.
grateful. I'm absolutely grateful for you being here. And I want to thank everybody for listening, for joining, for sharing. Appreciate you guys. We will see you next time. Thank you for all your support of this show.